Hey, Peter.
Yeah.
Do you know how to spell out a C sharp, half diminished, flat 7, double flat 5 over B major 7?
I don't, but I heard you play one last night on your gig. It sounded good.
Ouch. I'm Adam Maness.
And I'm Peter Martin.
And you are listening to the You'll Hear It podcast.
Dogmatic daily jazz advice coming at you. You were a little dogmatic in your intro today.
I was a little dogmatic. Today's episode is sponsored by the Oxford American. The Oxford American is a magazine dedicated to documenting the complexity and vitality of the American South. Its award-winning annual music issue comes with a CD sampler and digital download. It's a must-have for any serious music fan. Recent issues have featured Nina Simone, Thelonious Monk, John Cage, and John Coltrane. Visit oxfordamerican.org/YHI today. That's oxfordamerican.org/YHI.
This sponsorship has been wonderful on a number of levels, but I feel like they're sponsoring our brains too, because we've been reading. I mean, I've been an avid reader for years, but truly, this is like the intersection of literature and music in a way that speaks to me in such an authentic way that it's very exciting. So I hope you guys take the opportunity to check them out.
Check out your T-shirt.
Oh yeah,
for our YouTube folks. Yeah, you got your
Oxford American T-shirt. Yeah, we might have to do a little giveaway sometime on that.
So.
Okay.
So today we're talking about how to name chords.
Yes.
This came from YouTube comments. We have our fair share of people active on the YouTube comments.
I know, and you know what? I've been shying away. I don't know if you've noticed.
Well, you've been giving me crap for months about it, and then all of a sudden you abandon it.
Well, the whole Corey Henry thing scared me off, man.
What? I blocked that out.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Right. That was we talk about trauma. Yesterday we talked about. Wait, is today Hump Day? Did I miss it?
Today's Thursday, man.
Oh, man. So yesterday,
yesterday,
after all that build-up. Anyway, next week I'm going to catch it.
Damn, bro.
Feels like Hump Day. It feels like Hump Day. So, with this, came on the YouTube comments. We're going to get back in there. I think it's safe now. Of all the snarky comments, snarky puppy comments.
I'm just going to go start commenting on Jacob Collier videos. That's
oh, that'll be safe. Yeah, well, good luck with that.
So this is from Florian on YouTube. He says, "Hey guys, I'm a guitarist from Holland." I only say that enthusiastically because he has lots of exclamation
Dutch
points.
people are very enthusiastic in my experience. I don't want to stereotype, but they really are in such a great way.
First of all, you guys are making some insanely helpful videos for all musicians, not just pianists. Thank you, Florian. I give you guys 10,251 out of 10 rating. I don't know what that means, but thank you. I have two questions for you. Where is it? Oh, first of all, do you guys have some guidelines on how to name chords? I think that's the question we're going to deal with mostly today. Because I don't think it's something we've really talked about.
Well, I think it's kind of like we both have children and beautiful families. It's like naming your kids. You want to reserve the best names for the ones you love the most. Is that the concept you use?
No,
Adam?
man.
It's not. Oh, dang. Sorry. Okay.
And I feel sorry for your kids.
Oh, my kids are older now. They know the way of the world, man. Your kids are still like young and, Daddy loves us all equally.
That's why you don't hear a lot about Macklemore Martin.
Poor little Macklemore. Where is he? Where art thou?
No, I think there are some guidelines you can use. It's definitely more of an art than a science. Chord changes.
Well,
I mean, it's part both. But like any kind of notation, it's really about what you're trying to communicate to your reader, right? You want to make it as simple and as clear as possible. That's goal number one.
That's right.
Right. So that there's no guessing game for the person reading the chart of like. What do they mean?
Exactly. Yeah, you should never have, and there should never be a situation, and this goes even beyond just naming chords, but this is certainly an area where you can trip easily as a jazz musician or jazz writer, so to speak, because there's so many chords that we put in for all parts, but you never want to have something written that you would have to explain where it's not clear from the music.
Yeah,
and we've both been in this situation as arrangers and stuff. It should never be like, I'll just tell them what it is. Well, what if you don't make it? What if you die tomorrow? Your music's got to live on.
Yeah.
And so it has to be very clear. And when you say with the chords, I would even say that if there's not a way to do it, and we'll talk about some specific ways to do it with chord symbols and stuff, but if you need to write out, and you're great about this in like some of your charts, I know sometimes you'll just write out the voicing, and then you'll put the chord. I mean, that tells them exactly what you want.
Yeah,
right?
It really gets specific. And I think that's kind of like number one, right, is really show your intent in the clearest, simplest way possible.
Yeah.
That's really the goal, is to show what you want out of that time frame that you have designated for that chord symbol in the clearest, so that your vision of how it's supposed to sound is conveyed, and the simplest, so that you don't have to write a 2-paragraph long direction of what this means. Dude.
Well, and I think that's great too, because you want to remember people are going to be, yesterday we talked about memorizing music and stuff. Once you want to make that process, hopefully, for them to be able to love your music enough to want to play it and want to memorize it and want to internalize it. So it does need to be as simple as possible. Now, that doesn't mean that sometimes we don't have something that is complex if the music calls for it at that time. But we don't want it. This is not a time when you're naming chords to try to make it like the equivalent of like use a big fancy word and be very verbose, and when a good, clear, simple word could work better. So you don't want it to be so simple that it doesn't explain the sound that you want, but you don't want to make it overly complicated just to make yourself look cool and technical.
That's right. So a couple of things you can do for this is, if you're writing or arranging a song with a melody that can be defined by the chord. So in other words, let's say it's a C7 chord and the melody is a D flat.
Yeah.
Right? Don't just write C7 as the chord.
Right.
You can convey what that melody is for the pianist in the voicing or whomever by putting C7 flat 9.
Right.
Easy to do.
And definitely don't like have a big D flat in the melody on a half note and then put C9 or C13 without anything else. Unless you want that to clash.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you want that sound.
Explain yourself with the chord symbol. And then also, maybe if that's not the sound you want over the solo, have a different set of solo changes with the sound you want over the solo. But in general, the melody should be primarily what people are soloing off of, and the chord changes should reflect that.
Yeah, and especially in this day and age of how we notate music, usually with the program finale, Sibelius, or whatever, and you start moving things around. Sometimes you start out thinking, I'm just going to put C7. The pianist will see the D flat there, and that's fine. But sometimes that gets taken out of their part, or maybe it's put into the bass part, and the bass only has the bass clef and doesn't have that D flat, and they just have slashes. And you might think, well, I don't want them playing that note. Well, that's fine. Then just put C7.
Yeah.
But if you're just doing that because you're lazy or you forgot to move that, it's better to kind of have everybody. And you might say, well, that's making it complex. No, a C7 flat 9 is no more complex to a good bass player than just a C7 there.
Totally.
And I think that another part, not to jump ahead too much, and we'll talk about it some more, but is like, think about these chords and how you write them, never just on their own. You want to think about patterns, because when people, especially their sight reading, they're identifying, really good sight readers are great at this, they're identifying patterns. So if you start putting like C7, F7, G7, you don't have any alterations, that's fine. But what you're telling the bassist, the pianist, somebody soloing over it, is this is bluesy. Even if like they haven't heard that yet, just because you start to see that 1, 4, 5. And so just think about that. Like that might be the kind of sound that you want. You don't have to put blues or whatever. But also be careful with that, because if you do that, they're going to, maybe they hear that you've got these major 7s and flat 9s and they're like, wait, this isn't bluesy. And maybe you want that kind of a sound, but just know that we're going to look at that as sort of a pattern that's there.
Yeah, that's great, man. One thing I'm thinking about with this, especially for simplification, let's talk about slash chords.
Okay.
Because I think this can be a real point of...
like whether or not to make them slash or not, right?
Like my philosophy on it is, I don't put anything as a slash chord that I can have as a root chord, right? So I'm not going to put like D flat major 7 over B flat. I'm going to put B flat minor 9. Right?
Yep.
I usually don't put like D flat major 7 over E flat, even though I see that. I'll put E flat 13 sus, right? I'll get specific with that, because I want to convey from the root up.
Yeah.
The only time that I would use a slash chord like that are very specific times. There's probably 2 cases where I would use slash chords, and that's, the bass note is not in the scale.
Yep.
Like if we're talking about E over
E flat.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly. I just want that clash.
Yep.
But always remember that the top chord, the top chord in a slash chord is the scale that the improviser is going to use.
Right.
Not having anything to do with the bass usually.
Right.
It could be in there because it's in the bass, so improviser could use it. But in general, if I say E over B, I want them to play an E Ionian scale, a major scale, right?
Yeah, and I think some people make this I've even occasionally seen somebody write like E major 7 over B flat 7. And I'm like, whoa, wait.
Yeah.
Because really the bottom of the slash, my understanding or my usage of it normally, except for some very select complex situations, is that below the slash or to the right of the slash is the root note, is the foundation, which is not necessarily the foundation of the harmonic center that you want, which is the whole reason that you're not making it one chord. As you said, D flat major over B flat. Come on, that's a B flat minor 9. Right. Unless you really want them to hear it, the voicing and the tonal center is really D flat. Like there would be occasionally a situation where it'd be like D flat major over B flat for the first 2 beats, and then maybe it moves up to D flat major, and you're kind of telling basically the bass player or the root to move down there, but the tonal center staying there. The reality of it is, for most situations, it's going to sound, and you want it, like, back to our first point of it being simple and clear. B flat minor is easier to read, and if it's going to sound the same, don't get so fussy.
Don't get so clear, being simple and clear again.
And readability. We want it to be, you want to get your sound, and if you have to make it complex to get, just make sure that you make it as clear and as simple as possible to get that complex sound. It's fine to get, I've done sharp 11, flat 9, flat 13 with a slash chord, and that's the sound that I want, and there's no other way to write it, then that's fine. But just make sure before you make somebody jump through those hoops that that's really what you want.
Yeah, I mean, the other case for
what you need.
A slash chord would be like, say, let's say it was like a B flat altered, B flat 7 altered over A flat, right? That to me is easiest translated as a slash chord. Yeah. Because to try to make it off of the A flat would be more confusing, I think.
And then you're really saying you want, like, that's almost like a pedal. Is that a pedal point? Like that would normally sort of show up at a pedal point.
Right.
Like you'd almost feel like it's going to go there, where the bass is like super rooted because it's so far from like the tonal center of the actual chord that it's kind of doing its own thing. And if it's moving around and stuff, it's just like boom, it's a stationary thing.
Right.
And
the other thing for slash chords would maybe be triads, like wanting a specific, like think about like E flat over A flat.
Yeah.
You could maybe notate that as A flat major 9, no third, but that is more confusing to me than just E flat over A flat.
Well, and if you really follow the letter of the law with that E flat over A flat, when I see that, I don't mind that. I'm not, because I won't play that like an A flat major 7.
Right.
I would get mad if that's what they actually wanted. They were just trying to be fancy, but it's like the melodically you're basing things off of that E flat triad.
Right. Exactly.
So this brings us to another good point as we freeball on all things how to write a chord here. When somebody puts E flat over A flat as opposed to, or even just E flat as opposed to E flat major 7 or E flat major 6, like have some intentionality when you do that. It's fine to just put E flat, but that really implies that like triad.
That's a triad to me.
Yeah. And not to say that when you're improvising, you can only play an E flat G and a B flat. You can do other things, but it's like that's a certain sound. If you put E flat 2, I used to not like to do that, but it really is a different sound. It's like an E flat 9 without a 7th, That's its own sound. And that's clear for people that play, especially in certain styles. Like the whole thing is like, I mean, we could put an infographic or a pictograph if that clearly made, we're just trying to represent what a sound is. So once you understand the sound and what the connotation of that is, then these things start to make sense and you want to make them clear.
That's right. E flat 2, like I would use that, and I do use that all the time, but mostly when the third is in the bass. So like E flat 2 over G.
Yeah.
Because I don't want that G in the right hand on that voicing.
Right.
I want only the third on the bottom of the chord.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing too, because when you put that, I mean, other slash chords, if you wanted to not have the third in it and you wrote a triad, I would say like you better write either a 2 or you better write the actual notes out so they know that. But in that case, because it's so commonly used in certain situations, E flat over G, is that the one you said, E flat over G? Like, same thing. When I see that, I don't need to see E flat 2 over G.
Right.
I mean, you can do that, but it's the same thing as E flat over G. I know not to put, at least let me listen, and most likely don't put the third in the right hand.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we can. I mean, I feel like we said simplify, and then we got really deep into some complicated stuff.
No, but we stuck to the theory of. I think it's just important to remember you only get as complex as you need to define the sound. I mean, the whole thing is about how it sounds and the possibilities, especially in a jazz situation where there's going to be some choices. You want to have choices.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, so, one thing maybe we could just touch on to wrap things up too would be where we started with, F7 versus F7 flat 9. There's an idea of like when you have a dominant chord but you don't have any alterations, do you call it F9 if there's a ninth in the melody? Or do you call it F13. And for me, I kind of default to more simpler, like F just 7, with an assumption that the pianist and the improviser, pianist or guitarist in terms of comping, the bass player, it doesn't mean you can't play the 9th, but we're not specifying any alterations so that you know that anything within that 13 chord is fair game based upon listening. But it doesn't, like sometimes people will put like F13 and then A flat 9 and then a D7. So when I see that, I'm like, okay, let me be very careful. And once I get to that D7, not play a 9th or 13.
That's right. I think if you want to be that specific, be that specific. But if you are giving the player more freedoms, be as simple as possible. The 7th is always a go-to.
And once you see a couple of those, and that's what we talked about too, pattern recognition, you're going to know, okay, there's a little more freedom. So I can do some susses. I can do a lot of different things, whatever's appropriate. Yeah. And that's generally what we want. We want things written out in a way, the chords, so that the comping instruments and that the improvisers have enough freedom, just as much as they can have, to make it sound good. So that you're giving them the constriction that they need to be able to fit in with each other. So it's not just like slashes and no chords, but not so much specificity that they're locked in beyond where they need to be.
Because what you're really giving them is the sort of voice leading. Like if I see, so back to the not alterations, the extension. So if I see C7, C13, right, and then the next chord is F9, I know that I have that A on top, G on top for the F, like the A on top, the 13th for the C, and the 9 on top as a nice little voice leading thing. And the same thing if
Patterns.
If I want to make sure that the compers do like a 9 motion, I would do C minor 7, F7 flat 9, B flat major 7, because I know I can get that G flat F motion, right?
Yeah, and it's not even like you're telling them the exact voicings, because there's several versions that you can make that happen, but you're giving them, again, pattern recognition. An experienced player is going to see that and be like, okay, I see what the voice leading is here.
Right.
All right. Nailed another one.
Done and done.
Done and done. We left off about 100 different ways to name chords, but that's okay.
Well, remember, for a limited time, You'll Hear It listeners can subscribe to the Oxford American for only $25. That's an amazing quarterly Southern culture magazine. Has all to do with art and music.
And look, this is a physical product.
Southern America.
I mean, these things. Is there even a price on here?
No.
Yeah. No, there is. $16.95 per issue. And you know what? That's a good value. I pick up very selected magazines when I'm traveling, because I like to do that and magazines are expensive nowadays. And most of them are not like the beautiful pictures. Even the ads in here are amazing. There's some great ads for New Orleans and North Carolina. Even those are beautiful. Look at that. Discover authentic New Orleans. But just to say that this is really a value. You spend $25 and you get a year. You know what? I'm gonna put it out there. I'm calling it audible. Look, you look nervous here.
I am nervous.
I'm gonna say this: if any of our You'll Hear It listeners subscribes to this for a year, the Oxford American, and you really dive into this for a year, and you don't feel this is a great value, I will pick up the tab for your years. By I mean Adam and I, okay?
Don't leave me out of it.
Just write to us at andrew@openstudio.network.com and he'll take care of you. No, really. It's a beautiful thing.
So that's oxfordamerican.org/YHI for that deal. And don't forget to send your closing credit songs that you might want to hear on the You'll Hear It podcast to andrew@openstudionetwork.com. That's andrew@openstudionetwork.com.
And some exciting news that we forgot on Hump Day yesterday. That we talked about the day before is our brand new you'llhearit.com. We kind of teased it out there. But this is very exciting. We have a new blog that accompanies this wonderful podcast.
Yeah.
We've always had the blog, but
as if we weren't giving enough great free information.
We're giving them more, man. It's all good.
You can go there for so much jazz related stuff, all about some technical stuff to like our lists of favorite recordings, all that stuff is at you'llhearit.com.
Yeah, we've got basically guest writers and video content from, scrubs like Jeff Keezer, Ulysses Owens Jr., and others. Some wonderful posts from you, Adam, on some great things. So you can go check it out. It's totally redesigned, super fast, and you can access, of course, the podcast there. But the You'll Hear It, the brand new You'll Hear It, a jazz blog from Open Studio, and that's at you'llhearit.com. And don't be putting like an apostrophe. We got some fools out here. Some straight up fools, man. I'm sorry. I'm going to get dogmatic now. You started out a little dogmatic. I'm getting dogmatic. Do not go to your browser and be all look, Oxford American, I know this is amazing literature and grammar, so my apologies for saying this. Leave the apostrophes off when you type it in. YOULLHEARIT.com. That's it. All right? This is a new day and age, okay? I'm sorry.
You'll hear it.
Getting off my soapbox.
You'll hear it.
You'll hear it. You better hear it.